Alright, so this is even Worldpyre. It's pretty fun to play. I had a I had a really good time laddering with this. I was able to hit Masters with it at the beginning of the month. Um, and we just had a good time playing it. It's pretty greedy. The market is hardly ever used properly because we only get broker for the market. Not a lot of the stuff in our market, like, if some of it looks weird, it's probably because it is weird and we don't get to really access our, a lot of this we're just not using, so, I mean, there's some, we could potentially, like, run, like, a bargain card, but I think I have it sorted by 2, let me fix that. We could potentially run, like, Draconic Ire instead of, like, some stuff. But I don't think we have any cultists either. Is Severin a cultist? No. So we could potentially run Draconic Ire for Zoe. But for the most part, we're grabbing Stormhold Knife against, like, aggro and stuff. And Silverblade Menace against any sort of mirror match, which probably won't be a strict mirror match. Or, like, Control Deck or something. And then Scourge of Frostholm kind of fills the same bill. Although it's surprisingly good against some of the, against like a burn deck or an aggro deck with all those spells. If you get a Scourge in play, it shuts off half their deck, and then you have a big 8/8 ground pounder to kind of stonewall them, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, so if the market looks weird, it's because it is weird. But for the list, we'll start with Even-Handed Golem, 2 power, draw 2. We are playing main deck Worldpyre, and that's kind of thanks to the fact that we have Even-Handed Golem. Otherwise, typically you'll see me running like Transpose, but obviously Transpose is a 1-cost card, so thanks to the powers of Even-Handed Golem and just some other card draw effects, we're able to rip through our deck fairly quickly and hit these pyres usually on time, or, you know, go set up for like a turn 8, play pyre, and use it immediately. So, and our deck has enough control to basically live that long, and it's fun to play. So let's just check out some of the choices here. Desert Alchemist, Deadly Ambush, Summon Plunder. We love the Plunder effect. Combos greatly with Zoe. Oftentimes we're plundering away the Zoe or plundering away the treasure just to make sure we're hitting our power drops, which are very important in this deck, and it being a way to make sure we hit 4 power, as well as, even if it dies to removal before it does damage, it slows down combat, it slows down the game, so we have time to cast our big spaghetti bombs. And next up is Broker for the creatures. Not a lot of creatures in this deck. We've got, I already went over the market, but 4/4 is fine. Dies to Jack, unfortunately, but whatever. What doesn't die to Jack? Severin of the Dark. Surge, play some Piercing Griefs. This card's crazy. You'll notice that some of these cards in the deck are premium, and that's because I had a lot of fun playing this deck, so I premiumed out a lot of the stuff. So, that's why. But making the Griefs is great. We are playing 4 Reaps, so oftentimes we'll just win on turn 5 with Severin. You'll play Severin, you'll Reap, you'll play a Power, and then that'll be 21 points of damage with the Griefs alone. And then they'll start flickering around and coming back, so they'll finish off your opponent eventually. If you have 2 Reaps, it's actually a one-shot. So that's kind of just a... Whereas it might not seem to make sense, we already kind of want to play Reap anyway, and the fact that we have Severin just makes it even better. And the reason we kind of want to play Reap is because being able to turn 5 play 8 of the Horror is pretty huge. And this basically, getting 5 influence off the bat, assuming you played, you know, 3 or 4 Dole powers, which is most of our power, scratch that. All of our power, except for our plunder power, we're pretty consistently going to be able to play turn 5, 8 of the Horu. So, yeah, Worldpyre, if any of you have been watching my videos, you should know what Worldpyre does by now. But we pay 4, and we play a card from our hand with cost less than or equal to our influence, and this actually ignores influence costs. So if I've got 12 Shadow, I can still play Aid of the Horu with, you know, Worldpyre. Now that doesn't really come up often, but it might make the power base make a little more sense, where it seems like we're almost never going to have Primal, but it doesn't really matter because we don't need it to play Aid of the Horu. We have access to it in case we need to draw into it in the late game, in case our pyres all get blown up or something, but we don't need it. So thanks to Worldpyre, we're fine. And since we actually have 4 main deck Worldpyres, it's kind of okay that we don't have access to Aegis in this deck, because we can just draw another one, so that's pretty cool. 4 Reaps, gain 3 life, decimate, gain 5 influence, combos with Severin, combos with Aid, combos with casting things. I have 100% played Reap just so that I could get a treasure off of Silex. And I'm sure I'll do it again. It's great. Annihilate, Annihilate's real good right now. There's just a lot of cards that die to Annihilate, and we are happy to play it. This potentially we could play more. Beseech the Throne, another fantastic combo with Zoe. I brought this up forever ago, but definitely works well with Zoe. And then Petition, draw a power card of your choice from your deck. We can hit any of our... So this deck, while we're looking at our like power fixing cards, your opponent quite often will have absolutely no idea what you're up to at all until you play Worldpyre. I've had games where I'll draw like all of my Rakano Celixes and like Seed of Glories, and, like Fire Symbol and Justice Symbol, and it looks like I'm playing Rakano. And then on turn 4, I play a Worldpyre, and like I just imagine our opponents are like, what? Or you know, I'll have games where I'll have like only Argenport power, or maybe I'm only Winchest. Those are the common ones. But there's even funnier iterations. Like one time I was like role-playing, I drew my only Primal Symbol pretty early, and then I had Justice and Fire. So it looked like I was playing like an Ixton control deck. And then I jammed Worldpyre, and they're just like, what? So that is definitely something that can happen. Xenon Worldpyre has happened before. It's pretty silly when it happens, and don't count out the fact that our deck's power base is so weird is because we can basically play everything with Worldpyre, and our deck has a very good we're very good at churning through our deck and hitting the power drops we need all the way up to 8 power. So it's not that important. Like, we're very likely to have Worldpyre on 4, and if not, we're definitely going to have it by 8 so that we can play Pyre and use it. And the fact that we can basically roleplay as another deck until we hit that point is pretty clutch. And Petition does a fantastic job of making sure whatever cards you have in your hand that you're trying to play before you play your Worldpyre can come into play untapped. Make sure your Silexes are getting you treasures. Make sure you have all of the power you need to play End of the Story on time, because that can be pretty important. And just, like, in general, just smoothing out. Like, sometimes Petition just grabs a Silex, which, by the way, we are playing 12 Silexes, because why not? We can get away with it, and in our deck, influence doesn't matter. We've got Beseech the Throne and Petition that can fix it, and Worldpyre can play anything else. Plus, even-handed Golem and Broker, they're all colorless. So, we have a very, like, the only time it gets awkward is if, like, you're screwed off Shadow or screwed off time. But even if you are, usually one Beseech the Throne or one Petition, you're right, just on, like, turn 3, you'll be able to play whatever it is you couldn't play before. And it also can help you guarantee that you'll have an untapped power for turn 4, which is very important because of Worldpyre. So I've kind of rattled on. Let's just look at a few other options. Vara's Choice. There's some units we don't want them to put into play, and there's other units that are just really annoying that we can silence and bounce off the board. And since we are playing a Worldpyre deck with Soul's Rest and Aid of the Horu and etc., we don't really care if we take a tempo loss. Like, Like, if we give our opponent a little bit of value because we decided the Vara's choice, and then, like, they get a body they can recast, we don't care. Like, we're trying to hit the point where we're just taking extra turns and stunning their whole board and just getting ridiculously far ahead. So, or just playing Severin and winning the game on the spot. So, we can take that tempo loss. Or not a tempo loss. We'll take that tempo gain just in exchange for making sure that, you know, we're not dead by the time we hit turn 5, which is when you've hopefully untapped with your Worldpyre. Or even if it's a slower game by the time we've hit turn 8. So, Vara's choice definitely earns its slot. Yeah, so that's what I feel about Vara's choice. End of the story. Not often we're able to pull off the tribute. Your opponent really has to mess up. The other way we can pull off tribute is if a piercing grief is like flipping back around or something is the most common. And then you like suicide the piercing grief in just to gain the life, or so your opponent thinks. And then they block, and then you can end of story. Since we are playing even, this is the only board wipe we have access to. And I actually found that the warp was pretty helpful. Quite often, sometimes we'll have to grind out these games. And it's not that uncommon for us to just be warping end of the story into play. And that's value. And then Soul's Rest and Aid of the Horu, just our top end. Taking extra turns and stunning your opponent's whole board, gaining power or gaining armor, and making 2 birds. Great way to close out a game. Once you've played Aid of the Horu, if you still have any Soul's Rest left, you can start taking extra turns and getting real far ahead on board. So that is the list. It's really fun to play. Very goofy deck. I'm not sure if it's the right deck for this weekend, but it's definitely the right deck for having a good time. I can tell you that, and the games will definitely showcase that. I think I managed to, for the start of the games, forget to include Wasteland Broker. So feel free to make fun of me for that. I was sitting there just like, why am I not drawing my brokers? And the brokers didn't exist. I forgot to add them to the deck. So for the first few games, yeah, I messed up. It was funny. It happens. I don't even know what I had instead of broker, but whatever. That's the list.